Hello, children. Great start. Welcome to the Windbreaker podcast. I'm Yahtzee Croshaw. I'm joined by two giggly fellows above me, Jay and Marty.
Hello.
Hello.
And also Toffee, who was looking a bit chilly, so I put a towel on him.
Oh,
The baby wrapped up. Cutie.
He's a happy boy. He's not one of those dogs who objects to having stuff put on him.
Good.
He's a burrower. He likes being under stuff. A lot of dogs don't like it on them, but he'll do anything if it means he gets attention. Anyway,
the heart of them all.
This week on the Windbreakers podcast, the question is simple: when does it become stealing? It meaning borrowing or taking influence from other people's games. We've got Marvel Rivals on the front because of the whole accusation being thrown around in it that it's basically an Overwatch ripoff. Jay, you're our resident Marvel Rivals stan.
Yeah,
is it an Overwatch ripoff or what?
Yes, 1,000%. Like, some of its characters are, well, not to say that some of the characters in Overwatch aren't wholly unique, but a lot of the characters are just kind of stolen from Overwatch in a way, and some, like Star-Lord, are just combinations of Overwatch characters smushed together.
Well, that's not strictly copying, is it? That's just no mixing and matching.
Yeah, for sure. And to the game's benefit, I think that's one of the main reasons it's doing so well, is because it's taken what worked in its competitors and tweaked what didn't. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Well, and it finds that there's an absence of that with Blizzard kind of dropping the ball with Overwatch 2, that there's a craving for that feeling of the original Overwatch, and so I think that's why we're seeing, one of the reasons we're seeing Marvel Rivals so successful and hitting a new high in concurrence, over the weekend with the launch of the new season.
Most played game on Steam, I believe.
Yeah, which is wild.
Well, I suppose the question that we're debating here is not so much is it stealing, or as is that bad? When does it become bad to steal? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with taking influence. I think that's just all of culture, really. That's what artists are. They take the influence from the artists that inspired them, and they rejigger it into their own stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
That is, in a nutshell, what an artist does.
Yeah.
But at what point are you just blatantly stealing someone's ideas and cashing in with a lack of imaginative effort? And when does that become immoral? Because I've got two case studies for you. Okay. Case study one, Marvel Rivals to Overwatch, Lords of the Fallen to Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Anything along those lines. Case study two, Unpacking to Unpacking Master.
I haven't heard of Unpacking Master.
So
is it just the
was
same
Unpacking
thing?
Master a game that came out after Unpacking?
Unpacking Master was a really shitty free-to-play mobile version of Unpacking that went so far as to copy the look of multiple assets. It looked exactly the same, but it was a shitty mobile version with no heart that just made it into a grind to get the eyes on ads and the clicks and shit. And everyone agreed that was horrible. And the developers of Unpacking came out and said, this is really discourteous and sort of makes us wonder why we bother to put the work in when someone just rips off all our effort and makes a whole bunch more money than we did.
I think we as human beings tend to turn a blind eye if it's copying from a monolithic corporation that we don't like. Who developed or who's developing Marvel Rivals? NetEase. all these names are dumb. Not like they're not a big company, but no one's pulling out the violin and playing a sad little song for Blizzard / Activision / Microsoft being copied. But when it is a small 2 or 3 person dev like Unpacking, then people are like, well, this kind of fucking sucks, because they come up with a really good idea, and now you're kind of taking money from independent artists' mouths.
Is that being morally inconsistent, though? Is it morally okay to steal from huge corporations?
We as human beings are morally inconsistent, 100%.
Is it morally okay to murder someone who has murdered someone else?
So,
it's a different episode of the podcast.
Yeah, that's next week's. It's a great area because I feel like there are two things. One is timing, and the other is progression as an art form. I take problem with unpacking. What is it called? Ultimate unpacking ripoff. Whatever it's called.
Unpacking Master is what they call
Didn't
it.
have the word
Unpacking
ripoff
Master.
in the title, Jay.
Oh, okay.
That was in the description.
Well, so I take problem with that because it's taking an existing successful piece of art and trying to effectively emulate it to get the clicks or the the money from an existing product without improving or putting their own spin on it. For me, that is a rip-off. That's not a piece of art. But then going to like Marvel Rivals, they clearly have taken a lot of inspiration from games like Overwatch, but they have tried to improve the genre and make it more palatable to a wider audience through its designs. So for me, it transcends that kind of area. But it gets even worse, right? We had Ares, who's the lead developer on Beautiful Light, which is an extraction shooter, and they're in development, and they're doing all of their development via streaming. So they're showing off all of it, including all of their source code. And somebody like stole all their ideas and got a game out quicker and is claiming that they did it first. And it's like, that's stealing. Like for me, that's an area you don't cross. And so it's very grey.
It's also oh god,
it's not strictly against the law.
Not at all.
That's the problem. There's always been industrial espionage. This was this happened with. Do you remember that film Madagascar with the circus animals?
Mm-hmm.
That was a direct rip-off another film that a rival studio was developing at the same time, which I forget the exact name of it. But Madagascar ended up coming out first, and the film that it was ripping off came out later, and nobody watched it because they thought it was ripping off Madagascar, even though Madagascar itself was a rip-off of the original property.
Like Ants and Bugs Life and stuff like that. Like they
Armageddon,
know it's
Deep
happening,
Impact.
so they try and produce the same thing.
We just, with our Phoenix tier patrons last month, we watched Deadly Games, which is a French Christmas-themed thriller that is the plot of Home Alone, but this movie came out a year or two before Home Alone. To the point where there was some discussions behind the scenes of did the producers of Home Alone end up seeing this movie and was like, well, we could just put it in America and make it a charming family movie. But I also, when it comes to games, this week is the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil 4. And when it comes to games, there's also certain games that come out that kind of act as lines of demarcation, and everything afterwards feels like it contains some element of the DNA of those games, whether that's your Mario 64s, your Dooms, your GTA 3s, your Resi 4s.
Well, the way I see it, there's two sides to this. On the one hand, culture has always been about circulating ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very insidious practice of patenting ideas that has been more detrimental to the video games than beneficial. Such as when Namco patented the idea of a loading screen minigame. And nobody else could do that, even though it's obviously a good idea.
Yeah.
Or there was the case that I think Nintendo, after Eternal Darkness, patented the concept of a sanity meter and sanity effects. I don't think they ever tried to bring it down on anyone at any point, but they did patent it. And everyone was paranoid about that for a while.
Most recently with the Nemesis system, right? Which is something that
was the one I was trying to remember.
Which is such a cool idea from the Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor games that hasn't been used since because of that, and they haven't made a game since.
Because of patent squatting, and that's such a good idea. And you really, I really want other games to take that idea and develop it and build upon it in ways Monolith proved that they couldn't.
Yeah, we want games to evolve as a medium, and patenting these things doesn't allow that to happen, right?
And that is an artistic crime, I think. It is a crime against artistry to do that. But then there's the other side of the coin, where someone takes an idea that a happy-go-lucky struggling indie creator made, and makes billions and billions off of it by slightly tweaking it and making it more palatable. I think Fortnite ripping off PUBG would be a good place to start there.
Yeah, there was also a 10 10 or so years ago, there was a really great mobile game called Threes, a little puzzle game where you kind of had to combine similar numbers by sliding tiles, and it was cheap. It was paid, you had to pay for it, but it was relatively cheap. But then a free to play version, or just a free version, ad supported, came out called 2048. That was literally the same thing, had the same aesthetics, just a different color palette, and that ended up being the game. Everyone calls that genre of game, oh, that's 2048. And it's like, well, no, that was Threes, and this game just came out and just stole it. And so that's where, you get angry when you see a small dev, when that happens to a small dev. Whereas, if it happens to I don't know, if someone, like, when people are stealing things from Nintendo or stealing ideas from Nintendo, I tend to not get too upset at that.
We get angry when someone steals a small dev's ideas, and we get equally angry when big devs patent squat on good ideas.
Yeah. I mean,
so that they can't be stolen. And that is where we have to find the dividing line, That's where there's some moral inconsistency going on.
Yeah. I don't know. I for one think, like, Nintendo is a prime example of someone that they, if they weren't the creators of a subgenre, they very much popularized the subgenre. And that can go for sort of arcadey kart racing like Mario Kart, or platform fighters like Smash, or even popularizing kind of the board game boom of Mario Party. And all of those ended up getting clones. We still get Smash clones, right? We still get Garfield Kart, which is clearly just Mario Kart. But I don't know. To me, it's almost like you've, by putting that idea in the world, you've opened the floodgates for everyone else to try to capitalize on it. And they might have less artistic merit, but some of them are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if someone takes the idea and iterates upon it and makes it better, that's what we want. But if then they go on to make all the money that was there, is that fair? Should we do it like the music industry does, where you can take people to court for not crediting you if you sample their music?
I think all I want is developers to be rewarded for innovating in a space, and especially if it's an indie dev, if they've done something very innovative. That's why I take problem with other games trying to steal those ideas and just do them verbatim, because they're taking away, right? Then they're taking away the reward and the money from the devs who actually innovated and took a risk, right?
But the same argument.
Yeah.
But if you were trying to legislate that law could also be used by corporations like Monolith to stop people using good ideas like the Nemesis system. I mean, the real question is, if you had to legislate this, how would you phrase the law so that it didn't cause any of the bad side of things?
Yeah, it would get real grey if we, like you said, tried to do a music industry thing here. It would, I think it would open a whole can of worms where indie devs would be punished. Because, how deep do you go? Like, there's a double jump? Well, X game 20 years ago did that, and now they have the patent for it, so you can't have double jumps anymore.
That's a good point. Where does the idea become patentable? I mean, there's some arguments say that since every single work of art can be represented numerically in binary as computer data, and you can't copyright a sequence of numbers, maybe copyright is bunk altogether, which is the extreme end of the argument.
Yeah.
But at what point does an idea like a double jump, that's just, it's like copywriting the concept of cinematography. You can't do that.
It's
what's just a fundamental thing that is just like a standard tool for a larger usage, and what is an idea that you can actually patent?
So, Pal World came out just about a year ago, and as soon as it came out, everyone, even the lead up to it coming out, everyone's like, "Oh, this is just Pokemon with guns. Someone's going to get sued for this." And eventually, Nintendo did take legal action, but it wasn't over the umbrella of Pal World. It was over, I believe, a specific catching mechanic or catching animation. And I don't care about this game, so I didn't read super far into it, but it was like a very specific thing that they came down on. But at the same time, like, while Pokemon clearly popularized and was a massive hit and sort of brought the monster catching genre to the public, it wasn't the first game to feature monster catching as its core component. You know, Shin Megami Tensei did it. One of the Dragon Quest games did it. Robotech for the Super Nintendo did it beforehand. So it's always interesting to me to where we point to a game and be like, oh, you're just stealing from Pokemon. It's like, well, what did Pokemon get its inspirations of? Because everything trickles down like that, right? We call things Doom clones, but Doom wasn't just born from the ether, right? Like Doom wouldn't have happened without Wolfenstein, right?
Yeah, by the same developers.
Yeah. So I guess, can you also steal from yourself? Because I've been playing a lot of Persona and Atlas and Shin Megami Tensei games, and I'm like, you guys have kind of just been making the same thing over and over. And I don't mind. I like it. But...
I think legally speaking, you can't plagiarize yourself.
Yeah.
I think impersonation is the issue for me, and where I think more developers should. I mean,
well, that's a whole other thing. If someone
pursuing, right?
That's a whole other thing. I mean, if someone copies you with the direct intention of getting people, the consumer, to confuse your product for theirs,
Unpacking Master is doing that, right?
Yeah. That's definitely that's absolutely should be against the law.
They should sue.
Yeah,
I would sue like that. I think that should be illegal.
I think they did.
It is.
Unpacking Master got booted off stores pretty quick.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and then there was a couple of years ago, there was that really shitty shovelware game that hit Switch called The Last Hope. Dead Zone Survivor and it's already been removed from the store, but it was clearly just Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us, like on the box art, but it was just like the game was an absolute piece of shit. So it was mostly trying to trick someone who might have watched the HBO show into being like, oh, it's that game I saw on the TV, I'm gonna buy it on Switch. And but that again, is a case of like, you're trying to trick people.
But again, you need to figure out where the line is, because on Steam, there's a million billion indie games with souls in the title, some of which have a visual style one could mistake for the visual style of Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
At what point is that?
Size, right? I think, again, it's size. Most people, general consumers, aren't, I think, going to mistake a game with the souls in the title as being Dark Souls, right? Because if you search for souls on the Switch, Dark Souls will come up first before anything else. But with indie devs, if you make the game like we saw with the free game, the Freeze Free, whatever it was called,
2048, I think. Yeah.
You make it free, not free, FREE, then you get higher up in that chain of search results, right? And now you start, that is the problem, right? The popularity of the game kind of dictates how much it could be copied in a way. It's so difficult.
I believe in copyright law they have terms for this sort of thing. Terms like moron in a hurry, where there's the deciding question is, could a moron in a hurry mistake your product for the plaintiff's product?
I love that.
That's a great way.
Like there's a mint in the UK called Polo Mints, and there's a brand of Volkswagen called the Volkswagen Polo. But no one would seriously buy a pack of Polo Mints believing themselves to be buying a German car.
Sure.
So that's never been a problem. But if you've got a product called Blark Souls, and it's about a dude, a knight in armor fighting the zombies in a fantasy world, and more in a hurry, might very conceivably mistake that for the thing their kid asked for Christmas.
It's also funny because the collective over time, I feel like get kind of numbed to things that are clearly inspired by something else. Whereas I remember, so Dark Souls came out in 2011, and I think it was E3, either E3 2012 or it was probably E3 2013. I saw the first demo for the original Lords of the Fallen, and it was the first time, because it was about a year and a half after Dark Souls came out and Dark Souls blew up. It was the first time I saw a game where I was like, Jesus Christ, you stole everything from Dark Souls. You stole the idea of the Estus flask. You stole the idea of bonfires. You stole.
Well, they didn't steal the idea of having a good fucking game, did they?
No, it was an extremely bad game. But it was the first time where I was like, I can't believe how egregious this is. Whereas now, every single summer showcase, a game comes out that's just Dark Souls but blank. And I'm just numb to it now. Like, I'm just numb to the point where we're like, what do we fucking call this genre? Like, oh, but it's puppets, so it's different. Like, it's just all it's not that these games are bad, not that Lies of P is bad, but I'm just so like numb to the amount of these games coming out where it doesn't even affect me anymore. But 10 years ago, when I first saw that demo, I was like, I can't believe this. Like, the gall, the chutzpah. Yeah.
How did you view the scale of Dark Souls back then? Did you view Dark Souls as a big AAA product, or did you view it as like, oh, it's this scrappy team from Japan doing something innovative?
We did view it as that purely based on views, because that became like, aside from Skyrim, that was the biggest game of the year for us.
Okay,
yeah.
From Software was definitely AAA at that point. Even Demon's Souls had a huge release. I remember.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fuss made about that when it came out. There was like special editions, art books, the whole shebang.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like GameSpot gave it Game of the Year that year. So it like the recognition started there.
Okay. That might change how you view the copying in a way.
Yeah. I feel like if you had a cool idea and you stop making games with that cool idea, it's fine if someone else takes that cool idea. Like there was a big, like Nintendo didn't create the RTS genre with Pikmin, but they kind of had their own take on, okay, you're a little guy and you throw a bunch of other little guys to complete tasks, and it's kind of like baby's first RTS. And then after the 3 Pikmin games, they kind of stopped making Pikmin for like a decade, and a couple indie games popped up. Tinykin popped up. A Wild at Heart popped up, and they were really great because it was like, man, I miss Pikmin, and this is filling a Pikmin-shaped hole in my heart. And then after that, Nintendo made Pikmin 4, so that's fine. But like, I feel like if there's like something I kind of miss, and no one's doing it. Like there was a long time where people just wanted another Paper Mario that played like Thousand Year Door. And then we see a lot of indies that are very much like, it looks like Paper Mario. It has the same sort of charming writing, the same active battle system and everything. And I don't know. If you if you leave your property for long enough, I kind of don't feel as bad if other people try to fill that niche.
So what you're saying is that patent stroke copyright should be on a timer, much like, say, optioning the movie rights to something.
Sure.
If you can't just sit on this, you have to actually make something, or you lose it. Use it or lose it.
Yeah, which is like famously, I think that's how like Sony keeps the Spider-Man license. They like have to make a Spider-Man thing every few years, or else. Yeah, I mean that's a. I don't think that's a good solution, but that's mostly like. I think about this more with my heart than with my head, of like, when I look at something, I could be like, ooh, that's crossing a line, or nah, that's fine. Like, to me, Marvel Rivals is fine. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's not a game I really want to play, but like, I don't consider it egregious.
No, I don't take people seriously when they say it's ripping off Overwatch, because after all, Overwatch was ripping off Team Fortress 2.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
And as I say, everything's just nodes on the great history of culture, taking the influence that came before it and paying it forward in a big, like a big old human centipede of artistic works.
Yeah, and you can be egregious with it, and I'm still kind of fine. Like, there was the Simpsons Hit and Run, which was just Crazy Taxi, and then there was one Simpsons game that was just Crazy Taxi and one Simpsons game that was just GTA, and I was like, well, that's kind of fine, because at least they're like, I don't know, they're putting some effort in with the Simpsons license, so it didn't really.
The Simpsons Hit and Run, and the other one was Simpsons Road Rage, although I forget which was which.
Yeah, I think Road Rage was the Crazy Taxi one, and Hit and Run was the GTA one, or vice versa, whatever. But no, in the same way, like, you know, you love Saints Row, and Saints Row, especially the first one, was clearly like, we want a piece of that GTA pie. But then they
like a lot of games. I mean, GTA couldn't copyright the concept of an open world city driving game. No.
But, you know, developers and publishers see what way the winds are blowing, and they see what's popular, and I think, you know, they want a piece of that pie.
Yeah, I guess you should just treat it like fair use. Like you can use an idea as long as it's transformative.
Yeah.
Like it's not just copying the thing so you can make money off the thing. That's the same as the money that the creators made.
Yeah.
You have to. It has to be very clearly a new thing.
Yeah.
Very clearly a new separate thing. Where's Jay gone? Where's our conversational lubricant gone?
Jay got bored with us, which I don't blame him. Yeah, it's, I don't know, how do you, like, we talk about like chasing. You know, we talk about Return of the Obra Dinn.
The lube is back.
I wanna. What'd you say? You're back.
The lube is back. I heard you say the conversational lubricant. Very sorry.
Right.
Lube's back. No, don't apologize.
There was an emergency I had to attend to. I am back though.
No
Hello.
I don't know. When I think of like some of my favorite singular indie experiences the last couple of years, like Outer Wilds or like Return of the Obra Dinn or even like Neon White. If I don't know how I'd feel if a game came out that was that started to get popular that just felt like a blatant copy of that thing. Like even if it was good, like how would a game maybe not set aboard a maritime like a ship like that, but a similar game to Obra Dinn where you need to solve what the hell happened here using those deductive skills, or a similar kind of exploration time loop game as Outer Wilds. I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I was a little thrown when you said Obra Dinn was a recent game because I just looked it up, but that was 2018. That was 6 years ago.
Jeez,
that was
Louise.
the first time Trump was president.
Lucas Pope, get on it. We don't want a cranker. Just give us a real game. Get the crankers.
Give me a Steam cranker.
Well, I said,
give me a Steam cranker.
I said when Obra Dinn, after Obra Dinn came out, said obviously this game has no replay value because it's a fixed puzzle. Once you solve the puzzle, it's done. But then I thought, hey, the New York Times has a crossword every day. Why don't you just make another one in a different setting? I'd be happy with that. Just make a new one every year.
And then that's a slippery slope to, I'm sure people played the first Assassin's Creed and we're like, we'll just do this every year. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, the monkey's paw.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, like the New York Times crossword is different every day because it's a puzzle. You have to figure it out. It's not the same thing with Assassin's Creed. That's just run up to the dude and stab him.
Sure.
You don't
need to figure that out. Yeah, it's just, knife, clones? Throat, bam. Attempted clones of Obra Dinn.
Have we seen any trying to capitalize on that?
Well, there's a few detective-style games. Golden Idol is often brought up as being like Return of the Obra Dinn. It's not really like Return of the Obra Dinn. It's just the old detective-style game where you just put in the right answer and it says if you're right or not.
There's something I played in the last year or two that felt like it. And maybe Obra Dinn wasn't the first game that did this, but how Obra Dinn had the if you get 3 things right, it'll confirm them.
Yes.
I feel like something from the last year or two.
Chance of Xenar
did the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I thought was a pretty good, an interesting way to you can't just blindly guess, but I think it will confirm if you put a little bit of legwork into it.
Yeah, I think that's the best compromise. Really.
And so it almost feels like an idea like that.
You can't just brute force it.
Yeah, and so an idea like that doesn't feel like, to me, it's just like, oh, well, Lucas Pope created a really elegant solution to this that everyone else should just kind of use, like in the same way that
it's a quality of life thing.
Yeah, and Nintendo, when they created like Z targeting in Ocarina of Time, it was for a little time. It was like, well, everyone should just use this. Like, this is how your games should work until we figure out the next thing, or how twin stick movement works on a controller in a shooter in Halo, or something like that.
I also feel like a lot of indie devs have a lot of respect for one another in their artistic interpretation of a specific mechanic or setting or whatever, and they'll take inspiration, but I think it's quite rare to see indie teams with sizable, dev teams straight up copying other indie devs verbatim because they would just lose respect in the industry, and
that's for those developers who actually give a shit about that. I mean, what about all those mobile developers that just hack out whatever's popular with stick figures and rectangles and then cover it in ads?
I'm sure, have there been like a billion Balatro clones? Sure. Like not just hard games, but like directly cribbing from the Balatro flow and mechanics.
There's like 9 Balatro per Yahtzee games on Steam, last I checked.
Yeah, which that's, and there you go. Again, maybe it's just like the weird, like we bring up with a lot of these issues where it's almost like the
I got a free idea
definition of pornography where I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah, I got a free idea for everyone that I threw out once, extrapolating the whole Balatro traditional games combined with a gameplay mechanic thing. What have you combined soccer with roulette? What if you had characters kicking a ball around on a roulette wheel? There you go. There's your Balatro knockoff idea.
Yeah.
Think about that one.
Yeah.
That's
I kind of
wild.
like that.
I
did
mean,
you
Slay
see
the
that
Spire as well. Everyone's like trying to do Slay the Spire. Just recently, I played that Dungeon Crawler thing.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's trying to invent new ways to randomize attacks. Dungeon Crawler with like fucking claw machine
Yeah.
grabbing things from.
We played the pachinko. We played a pachinko game. A little while ago,
Yes,
whatever that
yes,
was. Billionaire.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
Plinko, but Slay the Spire.
Yeah. Silly. Did you see that the Sifu devs announced their next game? And I imagine it's not their main next game, but their next game is like
I
a
was just thinking
combat
about this.
soccer game that just kind of looks like Rocket League,
Rocket
But
League,
with, like,
yeah.
but with
like
Men.
multiple people, so you're actually playing on a team rather than most soccer interpretations. Like with FIFA or whatever. What is it called? PES. Whatever it's
Pro
fucking
Evolution Soccer. Yeah.
usually you're playing it's 1v1 in the sense of you're controlling the entire team. This looks like you are individually playing the goalkeeper, the defender, the striker, and that
Well,
could
the
be really
goalkeeper's in
interesting.
for a bloody boring experience, aren't they?
I loved playing goalkeeper in Rocket League. I found it really
Rocket League's
exhilarating.
3-on-3. The goalkeeper can do other things.
Rocket League's not 3-on-3, is it?
I think the goalkeeper will probably get more interaction with the game than most of the other people, right? Because the goal is always coming towards them.
Well, it
So-
depends how good the other team is, I suppose.
That's very true. That's very true.
This game actually looks pretty cool.
This is what I was thinking
Bring it
about
back,
when you
let's
said, "Oh, why doesn't Lucas Pope just make another Obra Dinn in a different setting?" Because I was like, "Oh, these guys did Sifu, which was like an incredible interpretation of martial arts in motion." And their next game is a soccer game, and I'm like, I respect that. Like that's very, it's very Arthur. Just like I'm gonna do what I fucking want. I love that so much.
Are there any games where you're like, why don't more people steal from this? Are there any games where you're just like, more people should steal from this game?
Oh, something sprang to mind, and then it sprang back down again.
Obra Dinn.
Well,
Yes.
I was talking recently about humanity and how it's weird that you don't see many Lemmings clones these days.
That's
Mm.
true. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if at a certain point, like, at a certain point, is it just that thing is too old for inspiration? Like, people have moved on?
Well, that goes through phases, doesn't it? Because people move on for a while, and then after a while, someone brings it back again and says, "Hey, we've come up with this new idea." Wink. And that's what I felt when I saw humanity.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what a new and refreshing idea that certainly wasn't an Amiga game from the early 90s.
Yeah.
I think market is a huge problem as well, because a lot of indie devs are obviously trying to find ideas that are going to have more of a mass appeal, because it's so saturated the market now that, I mean, we've equally all spoken about them, but some of the best indie games of last year, like 10 Bells or Cryptmaster and stuff like that, haven't really done very well, even though they are pushing the industry forward and they're doing these crazy ideas. They're not really getting the sales because, Block Souls has come out and that's got 20 million sales.
Well, for 10 bells at least, I'm going to do a fully ramblomatic on the subject of the anomaly hunt indie genre, because I happen to think that's very interesting.
Agreed.
And talking about ideas that should be ripped off, indie horror certainly seems to be going in on that with Exit 8, or whatever the very first repeating environment anomaly hunt spot the difference game was.
Yeah.
It's funny. I would have a few months ago. I would have been like, what we should get? We should get more games like pinball games that aren't about pinball, like a pinball Metroidvania, like in Yoku's Island Express, which I loved.
Yeah.
And then we played that pinball Metroidvania a couple months ago, Yahtzee, and then
Yes.
and I'm like, maybe we should have this.
But you didn't like
Well,
that interpretation of it, right?
Yeah, and I
A
did like
different
the interpretation in Yoku's
Yeah.
Island.
that just didn't have much imagination to it. That was basically just actual pinball tables, but like 20 of them stitched together. Whereas
Yeah.
Yoku's Island Express had an actual, setting and theme and story and shit.
You didn't really need to be good at pinball to be good at Yoku's, where it felt like you need to be good at pinball to get through
Yeah.
whatever that
Yeah.
pinball game was. We need more Strand games. Why isn't anyone out here making more Strand games?
Strand games?
Yeah. The Strand genre, created by Hideo Kojima in 2019's Death Stranding.
If it doesn't have Kojima's quirk and narrative attached, people would think it was incredibly fucking boring. Like that's
pretty spot on.
Well, you know, dad games, Power Wash Simulator. That's a niche.
Yeah. Dad loves picking up a thing.
Is walking a niche? Like walking sims are called walking sims not because people like walking.
If you make an actual challenge out of the walking, like what Death Stranding does, turn it into a hike where you have to manage resources and make sure your equipment is properly packed.
Yeah. Or what Eric's showing right now, Baby Steps, which is the follow-up. It's by Bennett Foddy, who made QWOP and Getting Over It. That's his game coming out this year, which is pretty much like when you try to walk in your dreams and it's really difficult, but turning that into a big video game.
Cool.
That's just getting drunk in Red Dead Redemption.
That's 100% just getting drunk in Red Dead. Yeah.
Shall we get a super chat?
Yeah. In conclusion, should Marvel Rivals be arrested? Or are they good? I think they're good.
No, I think they can. We'll just issue them a caution.
Okay. Just a yellow card. They're fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the moment you bring out a magenta-haired lady with a minigun, well, we're going to have some deeper conversations.
I'm sure there's got to be one of them in the game already.
I mean, Rocket Raccoon. There we go.
Apparently they got so many bloody characters in there.
Yeah.
They're adding 4 in this one season. Can you believe it? That's mad.
I mean, are they the Fantastic Four?
They are. There's the Fantastic
Four. There's got to be like a million balance issues that arises from having that many characters.
Hey, surely. Well, guess what? That's the topic of my next video. So,
oh well, there you go. I mean, there were balance issues enough in Team Fortress 2. I mean, some might argue that even in Team Fortress 2, some of those classes were a little bit redundant.
Did Valve ever add a class to Team Fortress 2, or was
nope, never. I mean, they joked about it sometimes. And some of the Halloween updates, you could see a gravestone with the 10th class written on it.
Oh, funny.
But balancing the 9 classes in a sort of rock paper scissors arrangement was very important to them as a design philosophy.
Yeah, you can't just add a 4th to rock scissors paper.
No, that just like exponentially increases the number of relationships.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yes.
Best not to, really. Anyway, super chats. Yahtzee will have a big smile on his face in 49 days. All right, let's check our calendars. What's 49 days from now? Is it my birthday? Because that might make sense. In €2, and says January 5th.
I believe it's March 5th.
Okay. Is that when a game comes out? Is anything coming out March 5th?
I don't think so.
Is that the day of Donald Trump's prophesied assassination, like Julius Caesar? Beware the 5th of March. Anyway, January 15th is International Hat Day. Last year, November 25th. Okay.
Wait. International Hat Day changes every. If the date of a thing changes every year, what are we doing?
I know, especially if it's like changes from quite late in the year to quite early in the year. We've barely had any time to prepare since the last International Hat Day.
Yeah. My hats.
A winged potato gives $1.99 and says you wouldn't download an Overwatch. Well, you certainly wouldn't download an Overwatch 2, apparently. Because nobody did.
Yeah.
Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing, as is his wont.
Thank you, Tsunami Dusha.
And says Hayden Goch gives $5 and says, last week Yahtzee described me-side as DDLC, but more so. I have been obsessed this past week, so here's a tip for the recommendation. Ooh. Well, I don't know if I recommended it. I mean, it's certainly got a lot of positive reviews, but that's probably because it's a weeb game for weebs.
Oh, is it a weeb game?
But if you'd like to hear some more thoughts about it, you can find out in this week's Fully Ramblematic, which is my 2024 Games I Didn't Review catch-up video.
Well, you got at least 2 people to buy it, because you got them and you got me to buy it. So
you're welcome, me-side devs. You're welcome.
Oh, I don't think they needed any help from me. As I say, it's made bank thanks to the weebs.
There are a lot of weebs.
I think it's a Russian game. It comes to us from old Mother Russia, I remember hearing.
Oh, my lord.
They call them weebskis over there.
Yes. Comrade Weebski. Why are you admiring that anime girl? Yahtzee will have a big smile on his face for 49 days, comes back with €2, says, just found my scalpel. Now I can continue. Are you threatening to cut my face into a Joker smile in 49 days?
I feel like those messages are starting to get weird. Maybe pivot to a different goof. maybe think about dropping this goof and going to another goof.
Why not prophesize a goof with one of the other guys? Jesus, you're obsessed. Alistair McPherson gives £10 and says, Yachts, last week on the pod you said you're excited to play Deltarune now that it'll be out this year, but only Chapter 3 and 4 are coming out this year and the game is planned to end after Chapter 7. Sorry. Well, shit. Still, at least it's got a planned ending in mind. I mean, that was the problem with Lost, wasn't it?
There was no problem with Lost. Lost was great.
Well, it didn't really know how it was going to end, did it? It was like, hey, mysteries, mystery box. And then, it didn't matter. End of series, bye.
It
was great.
Imagine having 7 chapters worth of a game planned, like, over the span of, 10 years.
I wouldn't do that.
Wild.
I can see doing that with a game if it's if it's very mechanically focused. But I wouldn't plan that far ahead with books, because I think half the fun of books is seeing where they go in the course of writing them.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Eric Cartman, open brackets, acid drops, close brackets, gives $5 and says, making an alternative to a game that repeatedly shits the bed and alienates its fan base feels different from just blanketly ripping it off. I feel like you're thinking of a specific example there, Mr. Eric Cartman. Yeah, Callisto Protocol. Maybe.
But then it's like, how do we feel about the same devs from the previous team attempting to redo a thing?
Yeah,
well,
like
that's just
the spiritual successor kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old Bloodstained Mighty Number 9 area. The old, we don't have the rights to this anymore, but we were the ones who made it. So, hey.
Yeah.
Wink. It's not, you can't rip off yourself, wink.
Can't rip off yourself, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hawk Abridging gives $4.99 and says, an issue with smaller devs being ripped off that makes it worse than AAA dev is that playing a bad rip-off can sour impressions of the OG concept. I suppose. Sure. I mean, I'm sure everyone's bloody sick to the eye teeth of Fortnite by now. And by extension of PUBG, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was really down, I was really down on Black Ops 4, because where they threw in the Battle Royale mode into that. Because it didn't have a single-player campaign. And I wanted to take the piss out of it.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Although that probably made them a shit ton of money, so...
Well, doesn't everything? I mean, it makes them a shit ton of money, but apparently making Call of Duty games costs a shit ton of money as well, so who the fuck knows if they're even in the black?
Yeah, it just keeps going up and up.
Dwarf 87. Yeah, like across the board. But I hear there's a new president who's going to help bring the cost of groceries down.
Yay!
I'm sure he's got lots of good ideas that will achieve that. Health 87 gives 50 Danish kroner and says, could I make a turn-based tactical combat sci-fi game in Game Maker with different sci-fi races, tech, etc., or would I get skinned for copying Warhammer 40k? You can make whatever the hell you like in Game Maker, Health 87, as long as you don't want it to have AAA-style realistic graphics.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said there didn't sound... Like, when you started describing that game, my mind didn't immediately go to Warhammer. Like,
no, I thought you were talking about ripping off XCOM.
Yeah.
Also, I think Warhammer 40k is, no offense to Warhammer fans, is so kind of generic that you could just do a slight spin on it and you'd be fine.
And it's so widespread over so many different things, like war games, first-person shooters, strategy games.
They big on suing?
I don't think so.
Games Workshop.
Well, also, how do you?
Oh, they have copyrighted spelling orc with a K.
They can.
I know that much.
They can have it. I don't want to spell orc with a K.
You have to say orc with a C if you're referring to the Tolkien monster. But if you spell orc with a K, Games Workshop comes down on your ass.
Oh fuck.
Warhammer 40C. Yeah, that's. I don't. Can you like? It's hard to steal. It'd be like saying, like, how do you steal from Star Wars, which is a thing that wears its inspirations so heavily on its sleeve? Like,
it's the hero's journey, isn't it?
It's the hero's journey. It's Seven Samurai. It's fucking Dune. It's yeah.
Well, if you had a main character named Duke Bywater, who swung a laser sword around and whose dad was a big novelty dildo, then you could probably make a case for the directly ripping off Star Wars. See, on one level, it's the broad, elements, the nuts and bolts of it, and on the other level, it's the theming. Sure. Like Darth Vader's appearance, Luke Skywalker's name, that's all theming. If you rip that off, you're stealing from Star Wars. But you're not stealing from Star Wars if you rip off, Hero's Journey. That's the nuts and bolts part.
Yeah.
There's to be enough connecting dots for it to be like, yeah, you've done too much. You can take small inspiration from specific points, but connections.
Anyway, Witticism gives $10 and says, video games generally are software protected by copyright, and there's rules about when basic word stroke code become creative expression. Patents protect invention, and that gets real messy with software. That's right, Witticism. You were the one who's a lawyer, aren't you? Well, obviously, you probably know more about the strict letter of the law with these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I kept dialing back into I don't understand the law, so this is just how I feel about this thing.
We don't fucking know. We're dumb video game journalists.
Yeah, extremely dumb.
Emphasis on dumb.
Deeply
dumb. Blank, member for 13 months in the Green Gang, says, have you seen the Animal Crossing copy Anime Life? No, I have not, but I think there's a lot of indie games you could call Animal Crossing ripoffs.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and then Animal Crossing even felt like it pulled a lot of its idea from kind of the Harvest Moon lifestyle games and everything. This game
Animal
looks
Crossing,
exactly like it. Never mind.
Animal Crossing was the game that invented going back every day. That sort of led to the whole Facebook game thing. It was the Facebook game before Facebook games were a thing. It was Farmville before that sort of thing was a thing.
Okay, I take it back. This game, I'm putting a link in the chat. This game looks way too much like Animal Crossing. This game, all right. These people need to go to jail.
Wait, what?
Marvel Rivals, you're fine. These people, you need to go to jail.
What if they had smaller heads? If they had smaller heads, would it be less obvious?
Big body, small head?
Yeah. Like the Goombas from the Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh, fuck yeah. They've stolen the faces. The faces are exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
Wait, are there animal characters? Because if there aren't, they're probably safe if they don't have animal characters.
No, scroll down a little bit. You're a human,
just
and
looks like a screenshot from Animal Crossing. What the fuck?
Except, looks like it's tilted a little bit in one screenshot. So got a little bit of a tilt.
In one, that is just okay. Yeah, drop the hammer, Nintendo. Please
do your worst. Use all that
I've never
energy
been encouraged.
You used on Pal World.
Delay the Switch 2. Just go at them.
Yeah.
Peter Parker SL gives $20 and says, after the creator of Flappy Bird took it down, all my friends and I at the time were trying to find the best clone game to fill that addiction. Would the game clones be considered stealing or just filling a void? At that point, yeah, the fact that he pulled it down implied that he didn't want to make any more money from it. So I guess the copyists were well within their rights to try to fill the niche there.
I think they were already attempting to fill the niche and they were just left there when that game was taken down. So I think they go from stealing to just stealing something that doesn't exist anymore. So now they're just...
I admire the dude who took it down. That's a very human reaction. Just to see your game popping off like that, to just be instantly terrified of the monster you have created.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
They
must have made so much money.
It was free, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they had ads on it, right?
I don't know.
Actually, I don't remember. That was too long ago.
But it probably made like $500 million in a weekend and then retired to, I don't know, shoot clay pigeons in a country house.
Well, that sounds nice.
And then just be a legend. Like, you could apply to any job in the games industry and just be like, I made and removed Flappy Birds. And they'd be like, cool. Here's a job.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, to me, a hit game is like a Baconator, simple, delicious, and well-beloved. But it'll eventually attract shameless imitators, and the audience will compare.
I believe a Baconator is a hamburger from Wendy's that has a lot of bacon in it.
I'm aware. Okay. I've been to Wendy's enough times. No,
I don't think I've been to Wendy's since high school.
You're new here. Yeah, I've been to Wendy's.
Yeah,
it was the first time The first time I saw one of those drinks vending machines they have now with touchscreen where you can add flavored syrups to whatever you want, it was in a Wendy's.
Look at that.
Oh, okay.
Classic Wendy's.
A whole new world.
Witticism, again, our resident friendly lawyer, gives $2 and says the Dark Souls example would be a trademark issue. Oh, fine.
But there's so many video game names that all are boring and sound the same. Elder Souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guardians of Who's My Tits.
Yeah. Who's my tits?
My favorite.
Yeah. What's the one I just been playing? Eternal Strands. Well, I guess Strands isn't so much, but even that just kind of sounds generic.
The word eternal feels like it's appeared in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Eternal Sonata, the JRPG where you're inside the dying brain of Frédéric Chopin.
Shout out to Chopin.
What?
Yeah.
This is a thing. There is a JRPG that takes place inside the dying brain of Chopin, the composer.
Yeah.
It's called Eternal Sonata, and it's kind of
360.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Hawk Abridging. Oh, missed one. Dr. Theo gives $5. Says, are there any copycats of Persona? With the success of those games, I'm surprised I haven't seen someone else try to copy at least the social link. Yes. Dungeons of Hinterberg. Sorry We're Closed has some very Persona-y elements to it, although much on a much lighter sort of way. What's that new game that's coming out? Demon School? We played that at GDC.
We played that at GDC,
correctly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Demon School is very much inspired by like Personas 1 and 2 in the SMT series.
I think the trouble with ripping off Persona is much like ripping off Dark Souls, is that ripping it off is such a complex game that ripping it off kind of takes a whole lot of work.
It's
So-
scale, yeah.
If you're inclined to put the work in, why not just come up with your own idea?
Yeah. And that's the thing is it kind of the monolithic Persona tower works because of all of those disparate pieces. And so if you just try to take one or two of the pieces, it just won't work. You got to do the whole thing.
I mean, I'd say there's bits that other games successfully pull off. I think Dungeons and Hinterberg does a good job of pulling off the sort of real world to dungeons like dual gameplay model. Where both sides of the game feels like taking a break from the other.
Yeah, and how doing better in one side helps the other side. Like the closer you become friends, the better you are in combat, and vice versa.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's the same. You know, there's if a game comes out and does something well, I like it when other games kind of pull. Like I like that after Breath of the Wild, there's this like trend of open world games with that same feeling of like the call to adventure of Breath of the Wild. They're the same like emphasis on the horizon and landscapes, and you get that in like Immortals: Phoenix Rising and Genshin Impact, and even a little bit in indie games like A Short Hike and stuff. So I don't consider that like stealing. I give that a thumbs up. No one's going to jail there. Congrats, everyone.
Hawker Bridging gives $4.99 and says, in copyright stroke patent law, there are exceptions if you can show the patent being enforced is detrimental or hinders an industry's development, i.e. jumping. Well, someone should have brought that up with the loading screen minigame patent.
Yeah, which I don't think that, well, A, loading screens just aren't long anymore, but B, I think that went up at a certain time.
Yeah, that's expired, but as you say, loading times aren't that a problem anymore. Although that could easily come back. I mean, it just requires gaming tech making a few jumps that the software developers can't quite keep up with.
Sure, or
like caching shaders. Games certainly seem to take a long time caching shaders these days when you first start them up.
What does that mean?
I don't even know.
My fucking Steam Deck is caching so many shaders, and I don't know what the fuck that means.
Explain this, Jay.
When you like walk it, I'll do it in simple terms. When you walk into an environment, every time you're rendering any scene, your computer is having to compile and render out those visuals. What compiling shaders does is if the game has any kind of complex visual systems, what it will do is it will compile and render out a lot of those visuals and store them in memory so that it doesn't have to do any of that complex loading during play. So it just does a big loading screen at the beginning, basically, so you can have shorter ones later on. That's basically how it works.
I was with you all the way up to in simple terms. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, Yahtzee, you've praised and used examples of Silent Hill 2 so much over these years. Is it starting to overtake Portal's place as your number one favorite game? Hey, motherfucker, Silent Hill 2 was my favorite game before Portal came out.
Oof.
But the thing is, I don't really have a number one favorite game because I think it depends on your mood. I have a number of games that I cite as best games ever, but they're all doing different things, and it would depend on what mood I was in. Like Portal, Undertale, Silent Hill 2, all of them I could serve as my best game ever.
I feel the same way when it comes to games, when it comes to movies. I just have a bucket that's at the top. And on any given day, I might lean one way or another, but it's definitely like a cream of the crop kind of thing.
Yeah. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, how much is Crash Team Racing a Mario Kart clone?
A lot. That's also pretty good.
I haven't had the pleasure of playing Crash Team Racing, but, you know, if you're an animal character in a go-kart going around a track...
Yeah,
having to
drive through little boxes to pick up items and power-ups.
I guess driving through the boxes for power-ups is certainly what makes it Mario Kart and not just a go-karting game.
Yeah, but it did do
some interesting things, though.
Yeah, it has. If you pick up, you can almost level up your power-ups. So if you don't use like your rocket right away, you can pick up the next one, and it's a like a homing rocket, or the last one, which is like multi-rockets. So there's sort of a
it has a really unique and engaging drifting system. Not that Mario Kart doesn't, but it's a little bit more involved and has a bit more nuance to it. So it's moving the genre forward in a way rather than just directly cloning it.
I think at a time, Crash Team Racing might have been better than Mario Kart. And
agreed. At the time,
at a certain point, the formula is so like crystallized that even the little improvements start to become significant. It's like it's like speedrunning. Like initially, when speedrunning a game starts, like the world records are like knocking off 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then after a while, you're just knocking off like half seconds. I feel like that's where we are with shit like the Metroidvania genre. Like Prince of Persia: Lost Crown was a good Metroidvania. Its one new idea was that you could take screenshots and paste them to the map, but that was enough. It's one tiny new idea but it improves Metroidvanias. So you know that's something. That's a new speedrun record.
Yeah.
Anyway, SkullChan87 gives $4.99 and says, greetings, long-time watcher. And this is their first super chat, incidentally. Woo.
Oh, thanks, SkullChan.
I wish people would steal more inspiration from Tokyo Jungle. Great game. Not a lot of games like it. Isn't that copyrighted by Sony? It was referenced in Astrobot.
Yeah, you can find the little Pomeranian. That game's so great. And it sucks that like a lot of PS3 games, it's locked to there. Although I think you could play it streaming on PlayStation Plus.
It was online, wasn't it? It had an online element.
Maybe it had an online element, but I think you could play it as single player. Just be a bunch of dogs. You can have sex with another dog and make a small dog. You could be like a horse. It was great.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
I mean,
you can unlock a salary man who's not even an animal. That's just a man.
The demo of it was quite involved as well. Like when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of money, so I'd go over to my cousin's house and we would just play demos. And I remember this game having a really involved demo, so it was great.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, idea to steal. MGS Revengeance's slicing physics. I think a lot of that was tied to the hardware, Alex Armstrong. I think that's the reason why Revengeance hasn't been seen on any consoles other than the PS3.
That can't be true.
It's on PC.
Oh, well, there you go. But I remember
it was on 360.
I remember being surprised when I was making my chart of games referenced by Astrobot. Because it references Revengeance, but I was checking to see what platforms all the games it references can be run on, to see how many you actually need a PS5 for. MGS Revengeance has never made it to PS4, like backwards compatible store. A lot of well-known PS3 games have. Revengeance is still only that generation. It has never been ported to PS4, and that surprised me to learn that.
Strange. It's weird because you could play it. You can play it on Xbox, like modern Xbox.
Yeah,
but I guess Xbox paid more attention to backwards compatibility like that moving forward than PlayStation did. Like after the PS3, they're like, "This is too fucking confusing. Make a PS4." Like just don't worry about everything from that generation because we don't know how cell processing worked.
Mm.
Revengeance is a good game. And I also agree. Slicing watermelon, very cool. Big fan of slicing watermelon.
Mr. Sadface gives $5 and says, if Yahtzee wore a bucket as a hat, would it be like Buckethead the guitarist, Lord Buckethead the UK politician, or Brando and Dr. Moreau? I have a very large head, Mr. Sadface. Every time I've bought a hat, I've had to buy the largest size available. One time someone bought me a hat as a present, and apparently the store owner refused to believe that such a large head could exist. So if I put a bucket on my head, I'd just look like a person wearing a fez.
It's crazy because that guy's job, you feel like he's seen every shape of a head.
Well, you know how...
You're a monster.
Yes. You've met me in real life. You know how physically large I am.
You're very
This is
imposing.
true.
Incredibly imposing.
I have the head to match. And not just the head, ladies.
Oh my god.
Roger
Talking
Lee
about his credit score. He's got a great credit score. Pays his bills on
obviously.
time.
What did you think I was talking about? Roger Lee gives $5 and says, my understanding is that when ripping something off results in something good, you call this an homage instead.
I mean,
good artists borrow, great artists steal, and all that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we also, if something's really good, I'm like, it's fine. You're fine. You get a pass.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, House the Dead 2 remakes announced. Thoughts? Okay, firstly, there's already been 2 House the Dead remakes. First one was Typing of the Dead, and it kicked ass. And the second one was House the Dead Overkill, which equally kicked ass in a different way.
Yeah, it was very much like a B movie, right?
Yeah, and it was really funny.
Yeah.
And I say that as a humorist who laughs at very few things.
You just don't...
I'm too into the weeds of comedy creation. There's very little I actually laugh at, but House the Dead Overkill was a fucking riot for me.
So who's playing, like, how are people playing this House of the Dead 2 remake? Are they just playing with the controller? Are you just moving the analog stick around?
I'm assuming on mouse and keyboard?
Be good VR games.
And clicking?
Who's got a light gun? Hook up your light gun.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, I can't imagine wanting to play these games without a light gun, but...
I mean, I assume light guns are still a thing.
Can I get a PC light gun?
Maybe.
I mean, original light guns on like the NES, that technology relied on CRT televisions, didn't it?
Yeah. But
I don't know. But then
there was like a handful of games like when the Wii came out, right?
Yeah, the Wii had a bunch of light gun games.
Yeah.
How's Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles, most notably, was the big Wii light gun game, as I recall.
There's a Switch one right there. Switch shotgun.
Put your fucking Joy-Con in that fake ass gun.
Huh. Yahtzee will have a big smile on his face in 49 days, gives €2 and says, I meant scalpel for miniature scalping. Gee.
Oh. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay.
I still think scalpels are scary.
I mean, you could still conceivably use it to give someone a Glasgow smile.
Sure.
Or Colombian necktie.
Sure.
You know what a Colombian necktie is?
Is that to say, is it cutting someone's throat?
Yeah, but also cutting their throat so deeply you can reach in and pull their tongue out, so it hangs out the front.
That's right.
That's wild, dude.
The classic Colombian necktie.
Yeah. You have to cut pretty fucking deep out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you kind of already killed them. I mean, it's just
seems excessive. It seems performative at that point.
Yeah, it's just putting a little flair on it at that point. Like hanging, drawing, and quartering. A lot of them would just die at the hanging stage.
Sure.
The rest of it was just pissing about. It was just desecration of a corpse. Famously, Guy Fawkes, jumped off the ladder when he was being hanged, drawn, and quartered. So he was killed during the hanging stage, and everyone was really disappointed.
Aww.
And they did the drawing, but they didn't have their hearts in it anymore. They were like, "Well, what's the bloody point in this anymore?"
We want to see the quarter.
Rip his arms and legs off. But Mom, make him come back,
Mummy,
Mother.
Yeah, exactly what hanging, drawing, and quartering consisted of seems to vary based on what source you look at. I mean, some people. I mean, the best source I've got says that first they hang you by the neck until you're mostly dead. Then they cut your guts out and show them to you. That's the drawing part. And then just and the quartering is just they cut your body into 4 bits and take them to different places to show you off.
The quartering was the horses ripping you apart, right? On your arms and legs.
I think that
4 horses.
I don't think they did that. I think that was a myth. although it might
All right.
vary depending on region.
It's a cool ass myth. Mummy,
Mummy, where are the
rip
horses?
them apart with horses, mother. I demanded.
Motorhead Banger gives 250 RSD. Says, Jermate, is that a Polyphia signature behind your back? If yes, what other elevator music do you like?
Oh, mate. So yes, it is. It's like one of my prized possessions. Also, are you implying that Polyphia is elevator music? Go listen to Playing God and tell me that's Polyphia music. You got Motorhead. All right, so I see you're a power chord enjoyer. Metal banter. Motorhead are great, no shade. But yes, it is. It is that signature guitar.
Name a Motorhead song that isn't the Ace of Spades. Marty.
If
that's
you
your
like to
challenge.
gamble, I'll tell you every man who wins some.
Yeah, that's the Ace of Spades. Name a different Motorhead song.
I believe they did Triple H's theme song that he would come out to in WWE back in the day.
What's
So,
that called?
Number 2.
Is that called Triple H?
It's called If You Like to Gamble.
Yeah, I mean, Ace of Spades, granted, banger, but I feel like it's we're in one-hit wonder territory. I can't think of any of the Motorhead songs. All the games gives 499 and says finished Galaxy for good this weekend, and my god, that ending! So much recontextualized and realizing things. Well done, Yahtzee. Great writing. That was the third book in my Jack McKeown trilogy, which consisting of We'll Save the Galaxy for Food, We'll Destroy the Galaxy for Cash, and most recently, We'll Leave the Galaxy for Good. It's currently available on Audible, still working out the deal for the print version. Watch this space. I'm glad you liked it. Everyone should buy it. It's good.
Yeah,
I think it's nice that we're appreciating how great of a writer Yahtzee is, but I also want to appreciate that me and Marty just clapped in the exact same way, perfectly in sync.
exact same position. Yeah,
Yeah,
a nice solemn golf clap.
Impressed.
it's very good.
Yeah.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, dumb power idea, super speed, only when closed eyes. Well, yeah.
Yeah, see, Eric's got it there. That's what happened, everyone. Just run to a goddamn pole.
I feel like you could certainly change the dynamics of a situation.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a superhero fight and you just run smack into a guy, he's got to react to that. That's not. And it's not useless like invisibility that only works while you're screaming at the top of your voice.
Teleportation, but you can only go to places you've never seen. So eventually you'll run out, and then you can't teleport anymore.
Well, how do you know you won't teleport right into a wall?
Exactly.
It's dangerous. It's too dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Danger.
And Mia, member for 11 months in the Green Gang, says, Yo, Marty, watch Happy. It's funny.
Well, that's the show that was based on a Grant Morrison graphic novel, I believe. Got like 2 seasons, starring that man, the man from Law and Order. I think the Law and Order man.
Law and Order man.
Oh yeah,
Law
this
and
is on
Order man.
Netflix. Yeah.
Which Law and Order man?
Christopher Maloney.
Okay.
Does he play Law or Order?
Plays Law and Order. It's like a Bruce Wayne Batman kind of thing.
John Law and Ian Order in an unlikely partnership.
I've had that show on my queue for a long time. There's a good chance I'll never get to it because I have 20,000 shows on my queue, and I just end up rewatching stuff. So I'll try, and I'll fail.
Alex Armstrong gives $5. Says Sonic Riders stole from extreme skateboarding games, but made worse, and each sequel was made for motion controls. Second game for Wii and third game for Kinect.
I do find it really funny where you steal from something and then you're like, we need to change it enough so we don't get in trouble, and then you just make everything bad. I think that's funny.
I mean, but they did All-Star Racing. Sonic All-Star Racing is really good. Probably like the only Sonic games I actually legitimately enjoy.
There's quite a few games we could call X, but they just put Sonic in it. Sonic Frontiers springs to mind.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, Shadow of the Colossus, but they put Sonic in it.
Sonic Shuffle, which was just Mario Party, but Sonic.
Yeah. Sonic Spinball. It's just pinball with Sonic.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Team Sega like trying to experiment and making new IPs, but then the execs just come in and be like, "Oh yeah, well done. This is actually a really cool concept. Make it Sonic." And they're like, "No, please."
There's plenty of examples of that in the world. Like, when Rare were making that game that turned into Star Fox Adventures, when Nintendo just rocked up one day and said, "Make this Star Fox. I don't care how."
Oh yeah.
I like your dinosaurs. What if you turned them all into Star Fox?
Diddy Kong Racing was that, I believe. It was an animal racer, but then they came in and were like, make this.
You got to put
Diddy
these
Kong.
dudes. Smash was the same way. Smash just started with like Polygon Man. Like it wasn't necessarily going to be a Nintendo characters. It was just going to be.
And a lot of these decisions, I think they were the correct decision. Like adding a recognizable IP, Marvel Rivals being a great example of this, right? They have great character designs, but once you pop a recognizable IP on it, it elevates it to another
sure.
level.
If Marvel Rivals would have just been, here's a bunch of random characters you've never seen before, like it wouldn't have done anything. But
it would have
like,
played really well, but it wouldn't have the player count it has now.
Yeah.
See,
absolutely.
the one counterpoint to that is, for me, Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 7. I think those games would have been just as good if they'd been original IPs. I think tying them to the large Resident Evil franchise ultimately just brought it down.
Yeah, actually, both of them would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, Resident Evil 4 was like going to be Devil May Cry at one point, or Devil May Cry was going to be Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
One of those.
I mean, Resi 7 has no ties to Resi until like the final.
Until right at the end.
Chris shows up.
Yeah.
So Chris shows up and says, "Surprise!"
And even he doesn't look like Chris.
Yeah.
So you can still be like, well.
When we did our stream of it.
Now I'm going to be the main character of the next game. Fuck you, Ethan Winters.
We did the stream, and then he shows up, and we did the final thing, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, Chris Redfield," and you were like, "How did you know that was Chris?" And I was like, "Because the subtitle said Chris Redfield, and that's the only reason I knew."
Yeah, actually, he looked kind of different at the end of Resident Evil 7. He looked a lot thinner than he'd been in Resident Evil 5 and 6. He looked a lot less muscular. He looked, dare I say it, like a normal person.
Yes, because Chris Redfield in 5 looked like a brick fucking wall.
He's like, I need to be big enough to kill this rock.
It's so big. You could plug a hole with those arms, dude. They are fucking gargantuan.
Or indeed, beat up a giant rock.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah, look at that. He's just a dude. I think in Village they bulked him up again.
Thank God.
It was funny even because before Resident Evil 7, that concept was initially revealed as a VR demo for PSVR called The Kitchen. And it wasn't even like you didn't really interact with it. It's the demo was you are like tied up in a room being held hostage and you can look down and stuff. And then like a scary lady comes out from the shadows who's kind of like Margit and ends up stabbing you like in the leg and killing you. But getting stabbed in the leg as I sat down while playing that or experiencing that was like a spooky VR moment for me because I was like, I think this woman's actually going to cut me with a knife.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I think she's
well, when you're in VR, your brain starts assuming that the thing it sees as your hand is your hand.
Yeah.
So if you get suddenly stabbed in the hand, like it's the natural instinct is to flinch.
Yeah.
Because as far as your senses are concerned, that is your hand.
Yeah.
It's like those studies they do when they separate your arms.
Yes, there was a trick
they brush them with feathers and then stab it.
Yeah. There was a trick they showed on QI where they had someone like put both hands on a desk and they put a mirror between them.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they'd like brush both hands with a brush and you'd look at your hand in the mirror. And then they'd stab a fake hand in the same place as the hand you were looking at. And everyone just sort of jumped because their brain was saying, our hand is being stabbed. Ow. We don't want that to happen.
Too spooky. Eric, how do you find these things? What is this? What are you Googling? How do you Google? How do you find this?
Hand mirror stab experiment.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
You guys are better.
Last super chat. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, on your void, semi-emblematic, Far Cry 3's Shrooms and Far Cry 5's Bliss works, if you say so. Those are the things where you hallucinate and you're in a weird floating landscape that shouldn't exist. I don't know. That's never happened to me when I've been on hallucinogenics.
Yeah, I think they work as scenes in those games, but getting to the bulk of Yahtzee's argument of like they don't really accurately represent.
What is the best representation of like hallucinogenics, but while maintaining the ability to interact with gameplay. Like the ones in I think it was.
Did you
I
ever
was
play
going to say
Post
Nathan
Void?
Drake. No.
Post Void. I think the way like the scenery sort of gyrates madly as you go through it reminded me a lot of looking at like repeating patterns while on LSD
Okay.
and seeing all the lines sort of waving around.
I kind of like I think it's Uncharted 3 when you drink the water towards the end. The environment becomes like a repeating maze and of just confusing landscapes, and I kind of like that, but can't think of any others.
Yeah. Well, for me, LSD sort of messed with my sense of scale. So
Okay.
when the example I cited in my video was in Arkham Asylum, where you're under scarecrows, fear gas for the second time. You go around a corner and the corridor just goes off infinitely into the distance. That felt like messing with scale. That felt more like an LSD trip.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that whole Alice in Wonderland eat me, drink me thing was supposed to be somewhat, analogical to taking drugs.
Yeah. One makes you larger, one makes you
Also,
smaller.
yeah,
Yeah.
intrinsically tied to scale.
Well, on that slightly damp squib of an ending, that's all the super chats. Thank you for listening to the Windbreakers podcast. We love to see you, and we especially love to see you give us money. Yeah. So thank you very much for all of that. I was Yahtzee Crowjaw. I was joined by Marty and Jermate, as always. And what a week of content we've got for you. It's always what a week of content we've got for you, because every week is a great content week at Second Wind. There's the usual suspects, Fully Ramblematic on Wednesday, which will be my catch-up of games I didn't review in 2024. My usual stream on Wednesday, we'll be playing a couple of new indie games on there. Yahtzee Tries from 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then there'll be the edited Yahtzee Tries video on Sunday, where I review all the games I play in my weekly stream. Yes, thank you for mentioning the Black Mesa stream, Sir George Lucas. We ended up not being able to do that last week because one of the participants had to flee their home in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because of all that fiber says, yeah, don't you feel guilty about nagging us about it now? But we're hoping to do it next week, hopefully if everyone's back in their respective abodes and everything's cleared up.
On that note, same for DevHeads on Friday. Both Tina and Mikey are in Los Angeles. I believe Mikey is okay, but Tina is still figuring stuff out. So there may be a delay or a slight change to DevHeads. If there is, I'll do a stream on Friday just to, tide you guys over. We'll have some fun. We'll do something. But DevHeads might be on hold while they, very importantly, tend to not only their own homes, but their loved ones.
This is how it starts, people. It starts with having to stream something instead of doing a podcast, and it ends with water wars between motorcycle gangs in the desert.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then the rest of the normal streams should be going on this week because the rest of us are not in Southern California. So we'll have Hidden Gems later this evening when they'll be playing Death Sprint 66. I don't know what that is. The art looks cool.
Well,
so
I'm assuming sprinting is involved.
I think it's got some running. It was a KC choice, so if you don't like it, yell at him. And then Firelink on Wednesday, Eliza P. Continuing their trip on Thursday. Casey and I might be finishing Metroid Prime this Friday or this Thursday. Finally, we just got it. We got to get the last of those fucking artifacts. Too many artifacts. We just got to get the last few. We're just cheating to get them. Don't worry. And then we should be wrapping that up. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. I had a Design Delve. Check that out. Top 5 best design games of 2024. Check that out. Just came out. A lot of the devs in that were very appreciative, which is really nice to hear. Good lads.
Especially the 10 Bells devs. Seems like they're like the fucking Candyman, those guys. Say their name 3 times into a mirror and pop. They appear in the chat and say thanks for giving us.
They love our stuff and we love their stuff. So it's a great trade.
We are the anomaly hunt.
Oh, no doubt we'll be hearing from them again in a couple of Fully Ramblematic's time. But anyway, I think that'll be it from us then. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.
See you around.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.